everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, Episode 9. Now, I don't know about you guys, but since the last time I was on, I've been doing pretty good, actually. Last week, you know that I took a week off, and I was out of town, and I was visiting friends and family, had a great time, had a ton of fun, and yeah, I'm just feeling really re-energized at this point. I mean, I feel like I can, at the very least, make it to the new year, so that's good, right? With that being said, I feel like it has been a long time since I did one of these. I mean, I know it's only been a week, but it feels like forever. And I have quite a bit of things to talk about. So without further ado, let's dive into my week. The first thing I want to talk about is that I finally finished reading Goodnight Punpun. Now, for those of you who remember, it was about maybe like 3-4 weeks ago. I said I was really enjoying the manga. However, because of like the heavy content, it was kind of a downer and I was kind of like not feeling it at the moment and I was going to take a break. So indeed, you know, I took a break until I want to say it was earlier this week, maybe Monday. I decided that I really wanted to finish the manga, you know, so I could get it out of the way and so I could share it on this week's podcast. So sure enough, sat down on Monday, finished reading the last 40-something chapters. And yeah, guys, that was quite an experience. I mean, I didn't plan for my Monday to be ruined, but yeah, after reading that ending, oh boy, I mean, it's hard to describe, but basically, if I had to describe the rest of the story as dark, the ending chapters are basically pitch black. I mean, the place the story goes is crazy, and yeah, afterwards, it just kind of leaves you feeling kind of hollow inside to an extent. I mean, it really makes you wonder about stuff like happiness and if we trick ourselves into believing that we're happy when we're not. It made me wonder about true love and fate and I don't know, like all these things because the story just has such a twisted view on everything that I guess you can't help but kind of have that mindset, you know, after you finish reading it. I know that sounds really bad, don't worry, I got over it pretty quick. But yeah, it was just a very crazy experience finishing that story. And the thing is though, I don't regret a second of it. I really enjoyed reading Goodnight Punpun. And as I've said before, I feel that if you are mentally prepared to read it, I recommend it and I think you will like it. Because it's just such a well-crafted story. The author definitely had a story to tell. And man, he tells the hell out of it. He does not pull any punches. And yeah, it's just one of those things where I give it a 10 out of 10. Would depress myself reading it again, you know? So with that being said, you know, Goodnight Punpun, I recommend it. But as I said, be ready to dive into it, you know. With that out of the way, I actually started a new manga series. And this one is quite long. So I know I'm not going to finish it anytime soon. However, it's a manga that I've heard about for quite a while now. I know it's like a really beloved series. And so what I'm talking about is a little manga series called 20th Century Boys. Now, like I said, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but it's pretty famous. I know it lasted for like maybe like 7 years. And yeah, 20th Century Boys, I am 32 chapters into it so far, but I'm really enjoying it. Like it's a really interesting story. For anyone who doesn't know, basically it stars this guy named Kenji, and he's like this 30-year-old dude running a convenience store. It's like a family store that was like a liquor store that got converted into a convenience store. And so he spends his days running the convenience store while taking care of his older sister's daughter because his older sister like left the baby and kind of like ran away. And so, you know, when the story begins, he's running the convenience store, he's taking care of the baby, his life isn't really going anywhere. I mean, he's not really doing anything spectacular with his life. However, where the story gets interesting is that he keeps seeing this recurring symbol everywhere. And I mean, without a visual aid, it's kind of hard to like show it to you guys, but I can best describe it as it being like this index finger pointing up with like an eye in the middle of it. And yeah, he keeps seeing this symbol everywhere. And when he finds out that a friend of his from childhood apparently committed suicide, and he sees the symbol in like his notes or whatever, that's when things start to get mysterious. You know, why does he keep seeing that symbol everywhere? What does it mean? And I guess kind of spoilers, although not really, since like I said, I'm only 30 chapters in. I doubt it's too much of spoilers. But basically, he starts to remember that when he was a kid, he and his group of friends had like this little secret base in a field and they drew the symbol. And the reason they drew the symbol is because they used to play pretend and fantasize about how one day when the bad guys attacked, they would rise up and they would be the heroes to save the world. And so the story gets really crazy when you start to see that someone is behind Donkey's death. And not only are they behind like his friend Donkey's death, but they're also committing acts of bioterrorism. And the way they're committing them is according to what they wrote as kids. So that means that whoever's behind all this is someone that Kenji knew from childhood. He doesn't know who. And not only that, but they are calling themselves friend, and they're using that finger eye symbol as like their symbol, to represent them. And they have like a cult that basically does everything that he says. And he has people like in the police and the government. So where the story is going right now is very interesting because it's this whole like worldwide conspiracy, very mysterious. But yeah, it's like a really good story so far, and it's really interesting, and I'm really intrigued. So even though I'm only 32 chapters in right now, I definitely want to read more because I'm like really excited to see where this goes. Like I said, I've heard really good things about this manga. And yeah, even though I'm not too far in, I recommend it so far. And I don't know if anyone has read it without spoiling it for me, let me know. Do you think it's a good story? Do you recommend it? That kind of thing, you know what I mean? With that being said, I watched quite a bit of anime since the last time I was on. However, most of the anime that I watched was all, stuff I've talked about before. Basically was just catching up. However, I did watch one new anime series, and that was a very strange series called Humanity Has Declined. Now, the easiest way to describe Humanity Has Declined, it kind of reminds me of Adventure Time. Like, it's not a perfect one-for-one comparison, but the reason it reminds me of Adventure Time is that Adventure Time is a post-apocalyptic world where magic exists. And you have all these like sentient animals and weird creatures, even though they're food and stuff, that are, walking and talking and, moving around everywhere. They have lives, right? Similarly, Humanity Has Declined takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where humanity has basically gone extinct, and the new, like, dominant species or whatever are elves. I mean, not elves, sorry. They look like elves, but they're called fairies. And these little fairies or whatever have a lot of technology, and they kind of help serve to give humans good luck. Like, there's like a weird relationship between them. However, the fairies are very like mischievous, and they wouldn't mind, wiping out humanity for entertainment. So basically what happens is that the main character, her name is the Mediator. We never get her real name, but it's this young girl, and she's this mediator between humanity and fairies. And so she tries to keep, the relationships between the two species. She tries to keep them in good standing, and she has like this power, not really power, she has this skill to make candy, which apparently like a lot of people don't know how to make candy for whatever reason, and the fairies love candy. So that's why her job is to keep the relations good between the two species. She does this by, hanging out with the fairies, giving them candy, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's just a really weird series because it follows the adventures of her dealing with this like post-apocalyptic society. And it's just really surreal, and the humor is like really out there. I mean, there's an episode where she goes to a factory, and the factory's being run by these sentient, skinless, headless chickens. So that's like a whole thing that's like super weird. There's another episode where she and another girl get caught in the pages of a manga series, and they basically have to recreate like different manga genres and like tropes and stuff to escape. So that was really interesting. And yeah, it's just a very weird series overall. It's very random, very surreal, but I guess for the most part I would recommend it. I wouldn't say it's like the best series ever. I would give it maybe like a 6.5, maybe 7 out of 10. But it does have some pretty good jokes, and it's entertaining enough. It's definitely different. So I would say check it out. And I know a lot of people always ask where I get all these weird anime series they have never heard from. When it comes to this one, I actually got it from one of those posts that says, describe an anime plot badly. And for whatever reason, someone just described the plot of this in the strangest way possible that totally caught my attention. And yeah, that's what persuaded me to check it out. And, you know, it was on my list of anime to watch for a long time. And so yeah, I checked it out during this last week or whatever. And yeah, like I said, kind of recommend it, not strongly, but it's definitely different and it's definitely interesting. So yeah, once again, that was a little anime called Humanity Has Declined. So moving on to movies, there's 2 movies that I watched and I enjoyed both of them. So let me talk about them really quickly. The first one was Creed 2. Now, I know I already did a review about it and it's on the channel right now, but just to give like a quick, little summary of it or whatever, Creed 2 has a really silly premise. I mean, the fact that one guy's son is fighting another guy's son from this movie from like 30 years ago. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that sounds silly, right? However, I really enjoyed Creed 2 because I think the execution of this premise is done really well. Like, by that I mean that I think all the characters are really, like, relatable, really sympathetic. I mean, you kind of get where everybody's coming from. They all have something they're fighting for. I mean, even Ivan Drago and his son, even though in the original movie, when you first see him, he's just this enemy, right? And he's like this steroid monkey and he's kind of irredeemable. In this movie, they give him kind of like some tragic backstory so that you see that after he lost to Rocky at the end of Rocky 4, his life kind of went to shambles, his country turned his back on him, that kind of stuff. And so it's really interesting to see him be back and be like really bitter and really see him like pushing his son to win against Adonis Creed because he feels that like if his son wins, basically, he gets his honor to his name, that kind of thing. And yeah, it actually worked really well within the context of the movie. And not only that, but I was actually really surprised because Dolph Lundgren isn't really a good actor. I mean, he's just good as like an action star. But yeah, like the emotion he put into the role was like really good. And yeah, like I said, the same goes for all the other actors too. I think Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone, at this point he has been playing this role forever, so he knows what he's doing. It's, great job there. And Michael B. Jordan as Adonis Creed, he does a really good job here too. I mean, the way he portrays himself with this character that's dealing with having everything, and then his world getting turned upside down because the guy who killed his father showed up and he feels the pressure of having to avenge his dad. I mean, that was really good. And so, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. Not only is the story, pretty good, I thought the fights were awesome. They're super raw and brutal. And yeah, I mean, I just really enjoyed the movie. I know that a lot of people on my review have said that they think the movie was silly or they're not really fans or they thought it was boring. And, that's fine. Fair enough. But I really enjoyed the movie, and I recommend it. I think as long as you don't take it too serious, you'll have a fun time because, I don't know, it's a sports movie. Sports movies are always a bit cheesy to an extent, but if you just kind of, go with the flow, I think you'll like it, so. Likewise, I watched Wreck-It Ralph 2, and I also really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know if I enjoyed it as much as the first one. I feel like the first one was just really impressive with how it had this video game story and all these video game references while telling this story of like a guy accepting who he is. I think it was like a great movie. Wreck-It Ralph 2, I don't think I like it as much as the first one, but I still think it was really enjoyable. For those of you who don't know, Wreck-It Ralph 2 takes place exactly 6 years after the first one. Like in the movie itself, the characters talk about how it's been 6 years. And basically we pick up, at a point in time where Ralph and Vanellope, they go to work in their game. Afterwards, they hang out. They're best friends. They've been hanging out every day for like the last 6 years. And while Ralph really enjoys his life and he has a lot of fun hanging out with Vanellope and, everyone else within like the Wreck-It Ralph universe, Vanellope is growing bored of her life. And so where the story really kicks off is that a part of her game, the steering wheel, breaks off and they need to find a replacement part. And so that's where they go to the internet and they're trying to buy a new piece. However, while they're in the internet, Vanellope discovers this other game that's like super like high action and like really violent. And she really enjoys being a part of it. And so the story kind of becomes about Ralph learning to deal with his friend, I guess you can say like not having the same dreams as him. While he's happy having his life where he does the same thing every day, Vanellope doesn't want that. And so it's about him coming to terms with the fact that friends don't always have to hang out all the time, and they don't have to be into the same things, I guess. And yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I know a lot of people think that, like, they said that character development wasn't great. Like, a lot of people said that they felt that Ralph kind of took a step backward from the first movie, but I don't know, I didn't see it that way. I think that honestly it makes sense that after being alone for so long in the first one and finally becoming comfortable with his life, it makes sense that in this one, you know, so many years later, of course he would be afraid of losing his best friend. And of course he would be upset by the routine being broken, you know, that kind of thing. But the fact that he learns to grow from that, I thought was a really good message. And likewise, I think that the message of, you know, learning to like not smother your friends was also really good. And so I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was great. I thought that the story was really good. I thought the voice acting, as always, was top-notch. And I even thought that the internet references were good. Unlike something like the Emoji Movie, where it tries to make all these references to pop culture, but it tries to do it in this way like, oh, look, it's so cool, like, you know, Spotify or whatever, and, you know, here's Instagram, and they try to be like trendy and cool. I thought what worked here is that the movie doesn't try to make things look cool. It kind of just portrays them for what they are, if that makes sense. Like when they show eBay and Amazon and that kind of thing, they don't try to make it, you know, like they're kissing these companies' butts, you know what I mean? It's just like, hey, this is something that exists. This is something that we all know, and here's our portrayal of it, if that makes sense. Likewise, there's a part in the video where Ralph's doing all these like viral videos, and I know some people said that they thought that was kind of cringy, and I mean, I didn't see it that way because it's not like he's doing it to like be cool or like be hip with the kids. He's doing it because he's trying to earn money to get the part for Vanellope. So the way he's doing it, it's more of like ironic, you know what I mean? And he's being more of like, this is something that exists. This is something that's popular. I'm gonna capitalize on that. So I think the fact that the movie is self-aware helps, and that's what stops the references from being like super cringy, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe if you haven't seen the movie, but I guess all I can really say is that if you're worried about the internet references being like really bad, they're not as bad as you would think. I think they were handled quite well. And likewise, I think the story is really good and I enjoyed it. So I recommend the movie. I know it's not going to be for everybody, but if you like the first Wreck-It Ralph, I think you'll like this one. And yeah. Moving on to stuff I played. There's only 2 games that I really dedicated a lot of time to since the last time I was on. The first one is Let's Go Eevee. Basically, I played more of that. I am almost to the part where you can integrate the Pokemon Go stuff. I mean, if you're wondering why I haven't gone too far, it's basically because I've been really grinding my Pokemon. I usually love to do that where, it's kind of an issue, actually. I like to grind a lot so that I'm like super overpowered. And so I've been doing a lot of that. However, I really enjoyed the game. I think it's really fun. As I said before, I think there's lots of cute aspects to it. I think that there's a lot of improvements to it. I think the fact that there aren't random encounters is great. However, I do admit that the Pokemon Go style of catching does get boring after a while. I actually watched the video by Mr. Panda. I mentioned him, you know, a few weeks back. Mr. Panda did a review on Pokemon Go, the Pikachu version, and he said that he thinks it'd be great if they somehow found a way to combine the old style of Pokemon catching with like the newer style. And yeah, I agree. I think that's like the one thing that the game has going against it. I do feel like the Pokemon Go style of catching does get a bit boring. So I feel like if they had integrated both styles and come up with something new, it would have been way better. But besides that, though, I'm really enjoying the game. I think the visuals are awesome. I think having your Pokemon chasing you around and all that is really fun. And I don't know, I actually recommend the game. Like I said, I think it's fun and I think it deserves a chance. So the other game that I played a lot was actually Final Fantasy 15. Now, I did beat the game, you know, back when it first came out. However, you know, since then, a lot of DLC has come out, and with the talks of how unfortunately the game is going to be kind of incomplete or whatever, I don't know, it just gave me some nostalgia or whatever. It made me want to dive back in, and I know there was like this Black Friday sale where you can get a bunch of the content for like really cheap. So basically, I bought the content, so at this point I'm up to date, I have everything in the game, and yeah, I was just replaying through it, and man, it's just such a shame that that game will never reach its full potential. because there's just parts of the game that I really love. Like I was basically playing the new game, what do you call it? The new game plus or whatever. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff about the game that's really enjoyable. The combat is fun. I love switching between all the different weapons. I think that the interactions between the main characters is great. There's like a great friendship there. I mean, you get the feels near the end when the characters go through a bunch of stuff. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much things about the game that are so great. I mean, the music's awesome. Being able to, I don't know, ride around in your car or chocobo or whatever. I mean, that integration of technology with like retro, Final Fantasy stuff, I thought it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, it just really sucks that the game will never be completed. And it sucks that the game will never reach its full potential. However, I mean, I don't regret buying it. I think it's an awesome game in its own right. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else there is to say, but I enjoy the game and I love the game. And I guess at least that will never be taken away from me, With that being said, though, that brings an end to my week. I mean, even though I did do some stuff, I will admit I didn't accomplish as much as I would have liked because, I was just busy with friends and family, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's it for my week. Moving on to the news. The first news story that I want to talk about is actually a pretty sad story. And it really sucks to talk about death so soon because I know last podcast I was just talking about the passing of Stan Lee. But yeah, the first news story has to do with SpongeBob SquarePants creator Steven Hillenburg passing away at 57. So yeah, I mean, it's just really sad. I know a lot of people are going to miss him. I mean, he was a part of a lot of people's childhood. Not only did he create SpongeBob, but he also helped do stuff for Rocko's Modern Life, Rugrats, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. As I said before, I always just find it really hard to come up with the right words when someone passes. But yeah, I mean, I just think he'll be missed. And I think it's a shame that he got taken from this world so soon. I mean, 57 nowadays is quite young. And the fact that he died from ALS is really tragic too. For anyone who doesn't know, ALS is this disease that targets nerve cells and the spinal cord, I believe. And Stephen Hawking had it, for instance. However, Stephen Hawking lived many years while with ALS. And unfortunately, I guess Steven Hillenburg, it attacked him much sooner and led to his death, And yeah, like I said, it's really depressing. The one thing that I do want to say is that I know I've seen other YouTubers saying that it's really important to make a donation to the ALS Foundation because that helps with like research and with treatment. And yeah, I made a small donation to the ALS Foundation. And I guess all I would really say for this is that if you can find it in your heart, I think it'd be great if you could also donate to the ALS Foundation. I'll leave the link in the description below. I don't know, if you don't have the money right now, that's fine. I know, everyone has different financial situations, but I think if you could donate, that would be great. And that would be a great way to, I don't know, I guess you could say honor Steven Hillenburg by giving money to this foundation to help people who have the same thing that, he died of. And not only that, I guess I would also say if you love Steven Hillenburg, support the show, go out there, maybe buy the DVDs. I think that'd be nice as well. And yeah, I mean, it's really sad for the first story to be so negative, but it is what it is. And yeah, I just hope that Steven Hillenburg's in a better place. And as I said, I'm sure that he'll be missed by many people. Moving on to some more positive news. There was this story earlier this week about how Square Enix apparently trademarked Parasite Eve in Europe. And yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Parasite Eve is this series that it's hard to describe. It kind of reminds me of like the Final Fantasy games in the fact that it's, very turn-based and you can do magic or you can do attack, that sort of thing. However, what makes the first Parasite Eve really interesting is that it's set in the modern day. And the way you have powers are because of like weird biological stuff. And yeah, it's like a really weird game to try to describe if you haven't played it. But Parasite Eve, the first one, is a really great like RPG game. The second game is also very interesting. It is a like genre shift, but I think it's really good. And when it comes to the third game, that game's just a piece of crap. I like to pretend it doesn't exist. It kind of goes against everything that the series like kind of stands for. But yeah, that aside, Square Enix trademarked Parasite Eve in Europe. And yeah, people are excited because they don't know if this means that there's going to be like a remake, a port. I mean, it could mean anything. But just seeing the series resurface after all these years is exciting. And I'm hoping that they do something new. I think a remake would be awesome. But yeah, I guess we'll see where it goes, you know. Speaking of rumors, there was another story earlier this week about how people are wondering if there could be a possible Skyward Sword release for Switch. Basically, as the story goes on to say, Eiji Aonuma, who's this person who, you know, basically runs the Zelda series, he said during this Legend of Zelda concert, he, you know, was like, oh yeah, wouldn't it be exciting if Skyward Sword came to Switch? And while that doesn't really seem like that big of a statement, it just seems really random that he would say that. And so people feel like there was a purpose to it. You know, like why would he just bring up Skyward Sword if it doesn't mean anything, you know? And not only that, but the fact that he's so important, like within Nintendo, that also makes people feel like there's some weight to this question. And so yeah, there's a rumor. People are just curious. Will Skyward Sword come to Switch? A lot of people are excited. They think that'd be really cool. Other people aren't too fond of Skyward Sword. They kind of hate the motion controls. But yeah, I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see if Skyward Sword comes to Switch. I mean, it would make sense since there was those HD remakes for Wii U. You know, from GameCube to Wii U. But yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Personally, I think it'd be great. I wouldn't mind buying the game again and going through it again, you know, on the Switch. But as I said, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Let's see here. So yeah, this next story is a little bit older. It took place more towards last week, but I still really want to talk about it because basically this news story is all about how the Lego Movie 2 has a trailer and posters. Now, I don't know if you guys are into the Lego Movie. I actually really love the first one. I thought that it was surprisingly really funny and like really well made. And yeah, I'm excited to see where the second one goes. I watched the trailer earlier before starting this, and it looks interesting. Basically, it takes place like right after the first one, and a bunch of stuff has gone down, and everything is kind of like Mad Max now. Like everyone's all grizzled and wearing leather and all sorts of stuff. But it's really funny because the main character from the last one, Emmett, he's still acting just as goofy as ever. And I don't know. I mean, I'm excited. I hope that it's a great movie. The first one was, like I said, surprisingly good. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if you guys are looking forward to it, but if you're interested in watching the trailer or seeing some of the posters, they will be in the link in the description below. Another story that's a little bit of an older one, but I want to talk about. Sometime last week, it was said that the guy who's running Castlevania, the Netflix series, he said that he's actually going to do a Devil May Cry anime series. And yeah, I think that's really cool. I know there was a Devil May Cry anime in the past that wasn't very well received. I mean, it was just very like serious in tone, and like the characters were just kind of lifeless and stuff. And I don't know. I think that if this guy and his team who did the Castlevania series and adapted the source material like so well, I think if they're behind it, I mean, that sounds great. I think a Devil May Cry series in that same style would be awesome. And yeah, I mean, it says it's coming to Netflix. I don't know if it says when. Looking through the article, I don't think it says when exactly it's coming. However, I think that's really cool. I'm looking forward to it. I think that, you know, Devil May Cry is an awesome series. I'm super excited for the 5th game. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this. And if you guys want more information, it's in the link in the description below. And unfortunately, don't know if there's been any updates to it. I was trying to look around, couldn't really find anything. But, you know, as I said, the story isn't too old. It's like a couple weeks old. So while I'm excited for the Netflix Devil May Cry series, I don't know what to think about this because there's this story been going around for the last couple of days that apparently Cowboy Bebop is getting a live action series coming to Netflix. Now, I mean, like I said, I don't know what to think. I think the anime adaptations, you know, when they're live action, they never go too well. And the fact that this is on Netflix, I don't know. I mean, Netflix has not done too good of a job. They don't have a good track record. I mean, that Death Note thing was not great, and I know a lot of people hated it. I don't know what to think. I mean, on the one hand, at least Cowboy Bebop is a very un-anime anime. I mean, it's more about like sci-fi and noir. So hopefully they can do a good job of, adapting it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just really worrying because Cowboy Bebop is just such a classic, and I'm just afraid they're going to mess it up, Like, I don't know. I'm just afraid that they're going to do the Death Note thing. But, I mean, I guess it remains to be seen. I guess we'll see if that happens. I mean, for all we know, it could get canceled. I know a lot of live-action Cowboy Bebop stuff has been planned, and plans have just always fallen through. But, yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes. As I said, I'm not too excited. In fact, I'm worried, but who knows? Maybe it'll be good. Hopefully it's good. It'd be great if it was good, because, seeing more Cowboy Bebop would be awesome, but I guess we'll see how it goes. Speaking of live action remakes, the next story has to do with the Lion King live action, and yes, I'm using big air quotes, live action remake. I don't know what it is with people's fascination with live action remakes. I mean, there is way too many damn live action remakes. You know what I'm talking about? Like, basically every week that I've done the podcast, there has been some sort of story about some sort of Disney movie getting the live action treatment. And I don't know, I'm just getting really sick and tired of having to, talk about it. Because, as I've said, none of the live action remakes have been that great so far. And I feel like the fact that they're pushing it so hard is really annoying. But yeah, with that being said, the Lion King live action remake, I mean, what they showed seemed fine. I think the fact that I've heard it's going to be shot for shot, I mean, at least hopefully it doesn't have the mistakes of Beauty and the Beast, who had all this random stuff they inserted that was really uninteresting. But yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where I just feel like if you already have the original movie, what's the point of a remake? I mean, are people really dying that much to see a live action remake? I mean, I think it's silly. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, whether I hate it or not, the movie's gonna go forward anyway. So if you guys are interested, the link to the trailer will be in the description below. As I said, it doesn't look bad per se, but it's just one of those things where I'm just so annoyed because there is too many damn live action remakes. I mean, I feel like at this point it's getting ridiculous, And yeah, with that being said, that was the last story. I know it's kind of a weird way to end the weekly news, kind of a limp ending, but I mean, it is what it is. As always, I hope that you guys found at least one of the stories interesting. So moving on to the content creator spotlight, this week I thought I would shake things up a little bit, and instead of talking about a new content creator and, talking about their channel, why you should check them out, that sort of thing, I actually wanted to give a bit of an update about a content creator I've talked about in the past. So basically this week, for the content creator spotlight, I want to talk about OMILI. Now, for those of you who don't know, OMILI is this awesome, super talented song, creator / I mean, she does animations sometimes, though not as much. And yeah, I talked about her the first week. For anyone who doesn't know, she's the one who made the intro music for the podcast. There's 1 or 2 videos I did where I used one of her song covers as the outro music. And yeah, I think she's great. I think she's super talented. As always, I would really recommend checking out her channel. However, what I'm here to talk about this week is that about a week ago, she put out a video where she was talking about some updates. And yeah, she has her music on Spotify and Bandcamp, and she actually just released a EP. So yeah, basically that's an album, but I think technically it's half an album. I mean, I'm not too well versed in music and how it works, but I think the way it works is that instead of a full 12 track album, it's only a few songs. However, I think it's great. I went and listened to it. I think it's awesome. I am gonna hopefully next week make a bit of a donation to her Bandcamp, kind of I bought the album sort of thing. And yeah, the reason I bring her up is because I think that her music is awesome. I think she does a great job. And yeah, go check her out on Spotify or Bandcamp. If you like what she does, you can give a bit of a donation on Bandcamp. Donations are open to, whatever you want to donate. I think it would be awesome if you guys helped her out. And yeah, I mean, as always, at OMILI, if you're listening, I think that the stuff you do is phenomenal. I think your stuff is great. I'm really grateful for how you let me use your music. And yeah, I mean, everybody, give her some love, check her stuff out. And as I said, if you can find it in your heart, donate some money to her. I think that would be awesome. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of the podcast. That is one more podcast in the bag. Looking at my recording time, I realized that this podcast was a bit shorter, surprisingly. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. I'm still trying to get back into the groove of things because as silly as it might sound, I feel a bit rusty after having missed a week. I mean, I don't know why, but it just feels kind of weird being back, I guess. But yeah, if the podcast wasn't up to par, at least you guys know why. And with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Hopefully there was some sort of a news story that caught your guys' attention, or I don't know, maybe something I talked about for my week was interesting to you guys, that sort of thing. As always, leave your comments in the comment section below. I always love reading those, and I love interacting with you guys, so, you know, please leave any and all feedback. And yeah, with that being said, I will be back next week. And yeah, as always, my name has been Wannabe Reviewer, and I will catch you guys next time.